Hey there, it's Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day today. Sending good vibes, sending positivity, sending blessings, and good energy to each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today we are talking Love and Marriage Huntsville. You guys know why you were here. Today we are talking about a teaser that dropped about an hour or so ago. Because as you know, they like to release a teaser Thursday, Friday, and sometimes Saturday because they want you to tune in. They don't want you to black out. And conveniently, you guys, after the drag of where was Melody Cherie last week, even though her name was being mentioned, they decide to drop a teaser that features Melody Cherie. Although this is likely the only Melody Cherie scene that is probably in the episode, you guys, if we want to keep it a buck, because it is clear they are trying to phase her out of the show. They are trying to give her as little coverage as possible, as little scenes as possible. No scenes with her and Mama Van, no scenes with her and the kiddos, just zilch, right? So we have this scene where Melody Cherie and Kimmie are talking again about Maurice and his first wife, and whether or not Kimmie was the side chick, or whether or not Kimmie knew Maurice was married. And so she is, trying to button this up in a nice, pretty bow to Melody Cherie. And Melody Cherie is like, yeah, we've never had this conversation about, any implications and all of the things regarding the timeline of you and Maurice being together. And Kimmie is going back and saying, I realize, that me and Kiowa are never going to be friends. However, we have made baby steps towards something positive. And it is giving there is no other storyline. It is giving there is nothing else to talk about, right? But nonetheless, we'll go with it. So Melody Cherie is like, okay, well, if you're saying that she keeps saying that she feels that you interfered in her marriage with Maurice, why is she saying that? Why is that happening? Like, were they divorced when you guys got together? And Kimmie was like, well, no. They were in the process of getting divorced, or the divorce papers were signed, or but Kawaya was saying that they were discussing, her and Maurice, they were talking about reconciliation. And then Melody Cherie, she was like, oh. Melody Cherie knew immediately. She immediately knew that what that was. Here is what that was, right? For those of you who are not hip on game, those of you who are not hip to knowing anyone who has ever been married or who has ever gone through marital issues and how all of that works. What that was Maurice was having second thoughts about ending the marriage, is what that was. And Maurice was thinking at some point in time, he may want to reconcile with Kiowa, right? Regardless if divorce proceedings are in place, right? And there are tons of people, whether it is your family, your friend, your coworker, somebody that was like, I'm getting a divorce. I've had it with this person, right? And one of the people in the marriage, they go out, they get an apartment, and it's this whole long thing, right? Because they're like, I am done. But a lot of times, especially if there are kids involved, like, I don't know, the child that Kiowa has with Maurice, when there are kids involved, sometimes the first couple of times are not necessarily the final time somebody is leaving the marriage, right? Because sometimes they want to come back and they want to try to make it work to have a two-parent household for the child, right? Or children, right? Depending on the situation. So a lot of times, the first time that spouse leaves, even if they get an apartment, even if they are telling anyone who would listen that they are going to be single soon and all of the things, the ink is not dry on the divorce decree, you guys. The divorce is not finalized because a lot of times they go back. Right? And even for Maurice, right? It is an ego stroke for him to have Kiowa and Kimmie against each other, right? And have them, be in this competition for him. And whenever he is pissed off at, one wife, he goes back to the ex-wife, right? To try to play this little game and this tit for tat, right? So it would not surprise me at all if Maurice was giving both Kimmie and his ex-wife lip service, making Kimmie think that everything was finalized, as well as making, Kiowa think that they could get back together. But then something happened to where ultimately whatever transpired, they ultimately decided not to move forward with that or not proceed that, or Kiowa was under the impression that a reconciliation was happening, and then she gets word about what is happening with Kimmie and Maurice and says, thanks, but no thanks. I am done. You lied to me, right? And so maybe there is something on Kiowa's end that makes her believe or has her suspect that Kimmie knew the situation. But if Kimmie knew that the divorce was not finalized, why are we entertaining Maurice in the first place? Why can't you wait until the divorce is completely finalized to pursue this relationship with Maurice? If it was truly meant to be, right? If it was truly meant to be, right? Because now this just continues to give more validity to the linebacker rumors, to the rumors of, you know, how you were trying to defend him and Martel and Marceau on their Atlanta trips and everything else to Airbnbs with linebackers, that if you weren't married at the time, then he was single, so it didn't matter. It didn't count as cheating. And this also explains why you defend Martel so much and say that he is a good man and he is a good gentleman and that he is just misunderstood, because you understand the point of view of a married man who is living foul, right? Whereas Melody Cherie is looking at this from the perspective of a wife who has been cheated on, who already knows the game of going back and forth, trying to make a marriage work when there is glaring issues, right? And you're trying to go back. You leave for a little while, you get yourself an apartment, you think this might be it for good. Then they convince you, you know what, I have changed. I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z anymore. And then you go back, right? And it's like a back and forth, right? It's a tug of war, especially when kids are involved, right? Because kids obviously want to see mommy and daddy together, right? So Melody Cherie knew exactly, once Kimmie explained that divorce was never finalized, you know, why Kiowa has the feelings that she has. That from Melody Cherie was like, oh, they were still handling some business. They were still doing something enough to where Kiowa has resentment. And Kiowa feels a certain way about Kimmie, because if the marriage was truly over and everything was done, why does Kimmie even put out there that technically it wasn't finalized? That technically it wasn't finalized, which gives credence to Kiowa and her feelings. So she feels like she was lied to, she was manipulated, she was being used. You know, ultimately, and Maurice possibly was playing both women, or possibly Kimmie knew. Kimmie knew that, you know, this wasn't finalized yet, but she wanted to be the last woman standing, right? And a way to be the last woman standing is if you interfere with a divorce. If you interfere with the divorce proceedings and make it known that a reconciliation is not happening, right? And you just keep popping up and you keep appearing, then of course Kiowa has no choice but to move on, because she's not going to get back with Maurice now, whatever steps they were leading towards reconciliation, if now there is another woman in the picture, and the woman in the picture, there is questions on the timeline, because rumor has it she was around before the divorce actually was final, or potentially before the divorce was even filed, right? So there's that. So this is very wild. This is very interesting. I have no idea why we are revisiting this again 5 seasons later. Nonetheless, it is giving, nobody else has anything to talk about now that nobody can use Melody Cherie and all of her business as a storyline. So here we are spinning the block again, you guys. We are spinning the block again, and Maurice apparently wants to spin the block again with Kiowa, because I do not know why we are having this be a thing, right? And she's going to be back on the show, and it's going to be this whole thing, right? So there is that. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post new content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.